Right, good morning. Happy Thursday. I need to make sure I can hear myself because my computer kept telling me that my mic was off. And it says it's good now, but I'm always just a little worried. If you're here, just let me know, like you can hear me. Otherwise, I'm going to test this. And yeah, let's see. Let's check on my phone and see if I can hear myself. Those of you that are watching on replay, good morning. Hey, hi, how you doing? Let's see. Am I even connected? Can't find myself. Oh, there we go. Okay, I'm on YouTube. Okay, great. We can hear yourself. Good. Okay. Hi guys. Happy Thursday. Made it through tax season. I'm tired. Tax season is always hard. No matter how much we try to improve it and make it better, there's always hiccups and it is what it is. But so hopefully I'm here. I'm hoping the only work I have to do today. Fingers crossed. So welcome. If you are new here, hi, I am Bree Beers. I do not have my water. That is very disappointing. We'll be fine. I am a CPA, a certified tax coach, an advanced tax strategist, a fractional CFO. I do a lot of things. I've taken a lot of tests and I passed a lot of courses. That's me. But I have over 20 years of accounting experience, 14 or 15 years of tax seasons under my belt. And I've been a business owner for going on 8 years now. So I think we just wrapped up our 8th tax season, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, I just finished up my 8th tax season as a business owner. So yeah, on top of that, you guys, and the reason I'm here today talking about tax planning is out of the majority of that time that I've been a business owner, and even maybe going on, prior to that, I was really working on learning the tax code and trying to learn about tax planning and tax strategy and getting over the fallacies or the myths that it's only for the super rich. And so that is why I show up here every Thursday, is to help small business owners and just everyday, high people utilize tax planning and save money on their taxes. So I think today is called Tax Planning in 2025. But today is going to be part of a multi-part series. I can't decide if it's going to be 2 or 3 parts. But today we're going to talk about why you should be thinking about tax planning right now, right? For most of us, tax season just got over. We just got our tax returns done. We don't want to think about taxes, but I'm going to tell you today, like, why it's important that you do start thinking about this. And then I can't decide if it'll be 1 or 2 more parts, but we are going to start talking, we'll talk about how to get started with tax planning, like what you need like the foundations you have to have in place in order to really benefit from tax planning. And we'll tackle some myths of why people think tax planning isn't for them. So probably a 3-part series. I don't know. I got to build it over the next week, but today's part 1. So today we're talking about why we got to start thinking about tax planning when it's not even May. All right. And so again, I already said April 15th just passed, and taxpayers, whether you're a business owner, like whether it's like your side hustle, you have a main W-2 job and you have a side hustle, or your business is your job. That is the one thing you do. That is your livelihood. Or maybe you don't have a business, you have a real estate investment portfolio. I talk to you guys as well. But no matter where that is, now is the time to start thinking about tax planning. And going back even farther, if you're someone who doesn't have what we call a tax strategy vehicle in place, meaning you don't have a business or you don't have a real estate portfolio, then now it's even more imperative that you really start thinking about tax planning, because you have an extra step of putting a vehicle in place in order to take advantage of the tax code, right? So it's really important, you guys, to understand that taxes don't just matter during tax season. All right. The real magic and the real work happens now through the end of the year. Right. And the bonus to that is if you do start thinking about tax planning and you do start to put your ducks in a row and you get everything organized and you are thinking about it, it's going to make your tax prep season easier. Right? Because a lot of us, We procrastinate or we just dread tax return season because we don't want to deal with it, right? It's like, oh, I'm not ready. I don't have all my stuff in a row. I don't, have all my business docs organized. Whatever it is, um, oops, there we go. Whatever it is, we have dreads of tax season. Is it, sometimes we're like, oh my gosh, I don't like tax season because I know I'm going to owe a lot of money. Well, if you engage in tax planning, that helps alleviate it. All right, because one piece of tax planning is calculating your tax liability throughout the year and handling it so you don't have a big bill at the end of the year. So we're going to talk about why timing matters. All right. And it's because the earlier you plan, the more options you have. All right. And we go back to putting the foundations in place. And again, in probably 2 weeks, we're going to talk about what those foundations are so that you are ready to tax plan. So let's assume you've put those foundations in place. You're ready to start implementing some tax strategies. The earlier in the tax year you start implementing those strategies, the more time you have to take advantage of them. All right. And we talk about, and I'm just going to give a little spoiler here. The things we're going to talk about over the next probably couple of months are S Corp elections, retirement plans, accountable plans that include home office expense, vehicle usage, maximizing travel and meals, what we call the Augusta rule. All of these strategies, the sooner you implement them, the more advantageous they're going to be to you, the more tax they're going to save you. Okay. And we get a lot of people, and this is how I was taught tax planning was December. December is when you tax plan, because the first thing you learn when you're in the tax world, and maybe even as a small business owner, is once we're doing the tax return, it's too late. There's very few opportunities after the year ends to implement tax planning, to implement some strategies. And so for the longest time, I was taught that December is when you tax plan. December, but still no. The more I've learned about this and the more I've dug into this, it's the earlier the better. Because the longer you wait, you're going to miss opportunities, again, to maximize the strategies you want to implement. And sometimes you're going to miss out on implementing any strategies at all. All right. So when we talk about hiring your kids, that's a very popular one. The sooner you can hire your kids and start paying them for doing work in the business, the more benefit you're going to get from that. If you want to restructure your entity, right? If you want to make that S Corp election, there's a lot of steps to that. In addition to one of the requirements, you want to make, you want to be paying yourself on payroll. The sooner you are able to make that S Corp election and set up payroll, the more time you have to spread out that payroll payment throughout the year. Right. And the easiest one is tracking deductions properly, right? When we talk about travel and meals and home office and mileage, all of these different kinds of tax saving strategies, the sooner you understand them, recognize them, start implementing them, the more beneficial they're going to be. All right. And so the other piece, the biggest reason I think this, even if you wait till the end of the year, I don't want you to, but as long as you are doing some sort of tax planning in the tax year, right? You are not waiting till you're doing next year's tax return. You are doing some sort of proactive work in this 2025 calendar year. You're going to give yourself peace of mind. Right? By planning now, you are going to have a pulse on what your tax liability is. You're going to be able to pay or save for that now when you have the money. You're going to be able to include that tax liability in your budgeting for your business. You're going to reduce the stress and the surprises of waiting till you do your taxes to know what you owe. Right? So the biggest one is that big scary tax bill. Right? By avoiding that, by doing just a little bit of basic tax planning, it makes doing your tax return for this year, doing that next tax season, that much easier, that much less scary for you. Okay. So in terms of, yes, okay, so we want to be proactive because we want to just kind of, like I said, mitigate the fear of doing our tax return and just everything we can mitigate from like all the fear, anxiety, procrastination we have with filing our taxes. We can alleviate that with tax planning. The other thing, again, we can maximize the benefits. So a great example is mileage, right? If you do not know that you should be tracking mileage for your business and you're not tracking it, All right, you're losing benefit. And we always have clients at the end of the year that are like, yeah, I can go back, I can figure out. But I promise you, if you are trying to do this retroactively, you are leaving money on the table. Because as good as our memories are, we are not remembering all the trips we made. We are not remembering how far everything was. So if we can put the right tools and the right processes in place to track our mileage on a regular basis, for example, we're going to maximize that benefit. Same with all of the business meals we go out to, right? I know when people are trying at the end of the year to go back and remember everything that they did for their business, they're not doing it, right? You're going to miss things. So we want to make sure we're maximizing just our deductions, right? This is the simplest tax strategy, right? Is making sure we're running everything through our business that is a legit business expense. All right. And we're going to talk about that like after this little 2 or 3 part, tax planning series, intro series. We will dive into the different tax strategies. And the first one is going to be maximizing deductions because that is the quickest, easiest way to save money on your taxes. All right. The other reason that we want to be proactive in tax planning is that we can plan for the major business and life events. Right? Maybe you're having a baby, you want to buy a property, you want to hire employees, right? You're thinking about growing and scaling in some way. All of these have tax implications, right? If you want to hire someone, that's going to be an added expense. If you want to increase revenue, you're going to have more revenue. That means there's going to be higher taxes. All right. So being able to plan now and kind of look at that allows you to see, because keep in mind that as you make revenue, your tax bill is going to grow, right? You want to make sure you account for that. All right. So by planning now, you're going to have fewer costly surprises in the future. If you engage in tax planning throughout the year or sooner rather than later, it goes back to that tax liability. You're going to be able to you're going to have better cash flow and you're going to be able to save more. Again, so many people don't know where they are tax-wise until they do their tax return at the end of the year. And then either maybe they've oversaved. We do have clients who save money, are very good at saving and putting money aside for their taxes throughout the year. And then when they do their taxes and they've oversaved, right? Which is that's a great direction to err in. But if you think about it, that's money you could have been reinvesting back into your business or, taking out and investing into yourself. So having a better idea of what your tax bill is throughout the year is going to potentially give you more cash to spend in your business. The other piece to that is the better cash flow is being able to line up your tax liability with when you're actually making money. All right. My industry is a great example. Tax preparation, right? That first quarter, up through April, probably up through the end of April 30th is when most tax preparation firms, that's their busy season, right? It's a seasonal business. Same with, anything in the landscaping where your summer is where you're making most of the money, right? So when you're seasonal, if you can do some tax projecting, which is a piece of tax planning, right? And you can say, okay, at this first quarter, we made, 30%, no, not that actually matches. We make 50% of our revenue in this first quarter. I want to make sure I put taxes aside for that, right? From the time that I'm actually making the money. Because if I don't do that and I spend that money, then at the end of the year, when I have this tax bill and that's my slow season and I have no money coming in, we're going to have a problem. All right. So tax planning at its very basic level is tax projections, and that's going to help your cash flow. All right. The other thing, it's going to help, it's going to help catch common errors that happen when you're rushing tax prep in tax season. All right. Because you are going to be looking, whether it's you or you have a tax professional that's helping you, you are going to have eyes on your financials multiple times throughout the year. Right? Because the first step, and we'll talk about this probably in 2 weeks, one of the first steps is making sure your financials are in order and they're organized. And that's part of the foundation we're going to talk about. All right. Which means you or your bookkeeper, somebody is looking at your books on a regular basis. Right. If you're then doing tax planning, then your tax planner is looking at your books at whatever time you guys are looking at strategies. So by looking at your books, you have eyes on your books throughout the year. So you may be able to catch common errors that we see when we're doing tax prep is misclassified contractors, missing deductions, maybe some overpayments. Again, because the more you're looking at your financials, the more you're just going to be able to catch those kinds of things, right? And again, it kind of goes into what we've talked about. You're going to set yourself up for a smoother year end. Because the foundation, one of the foundations of tax planning is up-to-date books or financials, right? When year end comes, you're going to have clean books because somebody, whether it's you or your bookkeeper, have been doing them on a monthly basis. So when year end comes, you just got to close out December and then you're ready to go. Hand those books off to your tax preparer and we're good. All right. So it sets you up for a smoother end. And it comes back to avoiding that procrastination that so many of us have at tax time. All right. And then for a lot of people, we get into this, I'll do this next year mindset. Okay. And next week, we're going to talk about myths that keep us from tax planning. We're thinking that tax planning is something we can use. And we'll talk about this more next week as well. But I get this a lot. Like, I'll wait till next year. All right. And the reasons I get this is I did find this error. Like, I broke even on my taxes. I didn't owe anything. I'm fine. All right. That's not just because you didn't owe on your taxes doesn't mean you're minimizing your tax liability, right? It doesn't mean that there aren't opportunities for you to keep even more money, right? Another one is I don't have time. That's a big one. That's probably the number one excuse I get or reason I get why people can't engage in tax planning is they don't have time. All right. But this is one of those things that I hope over the next couple of weeks and months, I explain to you guys is important. And I show the importance of making time for this or finding someone on your team that this becomes a priority for, because the return on it is huge. You know, if you are able to engage in some tax planning and implement some tax strategies, the tax savings, the money, right, that you can save is huge. And that puts it back into your pocket, you guys, so you can reinvest it into the business. You can, if you don't have time and now we're saving you $10,000 in taxes, maybe you can hire an admin to take some stuff off your plate so that you now have time for this. There's so many reasons, right? And then another big one we get is I don't make enough money yet. You know, I'm only making a little bit of money and this is a side hustle. Tax planning really is, I'm not there yet. You'd be surprised. All right. We have a number of clients who they have a W-2 job. That's where most of their income comes from. They have a little side hustle. It's a hobby. They've turned into a business. They're making a little bit of money. And we use that business as a tax vehicle to save money, to save money on their taxes. When most of their income is coming from this W-2, but because they have this business, we're able to implement some strategies and save them taxes. All right, no matter how small it is. All right, so planning is what helps you grow it. It's what helps your business grow. Because again, there's these foundations that require you to step up your ownership, what you're doing for your business. It gives you confidence in your decisions. And if you've been around long enough, you've been learning from me. One of the things we always talk about is making data-driven decisions, right? Because one of the foundations of tax planning is having up-to-date financials and knowing what your financials look like on a monthly basis. Not only now, great, we can do some tax planning because you have this foundation in place, but now you have data to make decisions in your business. All right, it's like an added bonus. So can I hire that person? Can I buy that piece of equipment? Can we add this new line of service or goods? You now have the data in front of you to make those decisions instead of just going, yeah, sure, maybe we can, right? And you guys, honestly, and we'll talk about this a lot next week, it's how the wealthy play the game, all right? I will, get on my soapbox next week when we talk about this, but yes, the wealthy and the rich are the ones that get the most advantage. They receive the most advantage from our current tax code, right? And it's because they have a whole team, dedicated to knowing the tax code and making sure they're taking full advantage of it, right? Yes, That is why they are the most benefited from our tax code. But you and me, as small business owners, can benefit from specific pieces of the tax code in big ways. All right. And that is what I'm here to help you guys do. All right. So I got done faster than I planned. All right, cool. So, guys, key points. So, just today was all about knowing that tax planning isn't about tax season, right? Tax planning is about now. All right. Tax planning now, and when I say now, I mean, May, June, July. Like I'm talking about the middle of the year, right? By starting to think about tax planning now, you're going to be able to put your foundations in place so you can take the most advantage of tax planning. You're going to have more control. You're going to have more time to implement the strategies and take the biggest benefit from it. All right. And because that one of the foundations is keeping up with your financials, you are going to make next tax season easier for yourself. All right. So yay. Thank you for joining me. Next week is the 20 something, first, second, third, 24th. So we're going to do part 2 of tax planning. So next week, we're going to tackle the myths around tax planning. What keeps small business owners and just average Joes like us from implementing tax strategies, right? So we're going to talk about what keeps us from doing it, what's true, what's not, and what helps us, and kind of get over that hump. Like that's going to be the focus of next week. And I think I will make it into 3 parts. Part 3 is going to be laying the foundations for tax planning. So thank you for joining me today. And I do want to tell you, so I think like we have the next 3 weeks planned out, right? There's going to be a Q&A in there. Q&A is always the first Thursday of the month. So we have probably the next month planned. But if there are certain things you guys want me to come on here and teach about, please, please, please message me on Facebook. My VA goes in there and picks out ideas that you guys have for topics, and I will teach on what you guys want to learn about. So let me know what that is. All right. So I'm going to go get some rest and hopefully not work too hard today or tomorrow. Fingers crossed. There's always work to do as a business owner. We all know that. But hopefully not too much. And if you guys are watching this and you are interested in working with us and you're interested in tax planning and tax strategizing, we offer free tax analysis to anyone. That's kind of like what we do. That's to see if we're a good fit to work together. That waitlist link is in the comments. Oops, I'm blown up. There we go. The link to get on our waitlist for a tax planning analysis is in the comments. It's free, you guys. You have a quick call with me. You answer some questions. And then we have another call where we go over the strategies that I found that can help you. We show you how much money you can save doing the specific strategies. So even if you decide not to work with us, you have a blueprint or an outline. You have an idea of what you guys can implement and how much it can save you. All right. And then if you want to work with us, great, we will help you. But it's just something we do, like I said, to kind of just help you guys understand that tax planning is for everybody. All right. So have a great weekend. We will see you next Thursday. Bye.